I would say I've been cooking, oh my goodness, I would say easily for almost 50 years. When I was young, my mother cooked. She cooked 3 meals a day my entire life, it seems like. But I believe what she used to let me help her with is baking. I got into cooking by baking, and then as I got older and had to live in college or when I got to be an adult, then I needed to cook on my own, so that's when I really started cooking. My mother is first generation American, so is my dad, and so her parents immigrated from Italy when they were children. And this recipe is the recipe that my grandparents made, and it's the recipe that my mother made, and now it's the recipe that I make and my children are making.
So what are we doing here? Talk us through this.
We're getting ready to make red spaghetti sauce. So some people call it marinara sauce. The first step with the sauce is to cook the onions in a little bit of olive oil until they're translucent. Three thumbs of garlic, some people call them toes, 3 toes of garlic. And what I do is I always add the onion first because it needs to cook longer than the garlic. And what's so easy about this, or good about this, is it's extremely inexpensive compared to prefab jar stuff you buy at the grocery store, because it's mainly just taking tomato paste. So my favorite brand is this Gwen. It's an organic brand. And I'm even going to open up this one, because really what helps me with this whole canned tomatoes is now that these are done, if I let them go any longer, they're going to start sticking and burning. But if I take the water from this can and drop it in, then what it does is it's going to keep the onions now from burning, because it adds just a little bit of water in there. And then I cut these guys up, and they're going to add more water so nothing burns on the bottom. Then the next step is to add the tomato paste. And it's a simple formula. For every can of tomato paste, you put 3 cans of water. And then the next step is adding some salt. So I'm thinking I'm going to put about half a teaspoon of salt. Maybe that's 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. This is sea salt. And then because tomatoes are typically bitter, we want to put a little bit of sugar in there, not a lot, but enough to kind of balance out the acidity that's going to be in the tomato sauce. And I just put a little bit, and then I can always go back and add more, like I can with the salt, so I don't want to put too much. But right now, we're just going to let it start to cook and come together, and we're going to go over here and work on the meatballs next. So the meatballs, just like the spaghetti sauce, don't require very many ingredients. They do require some bread, and usually I have something in the refrigerator that I have left over from another meal that's kind of a white bread. And the other thing that I do and this makes it real Italian meatballs, is that I always put inside the Parmesan cheese. So you're going to put a healthy dose in there of Parmesan. Kind of mix those together. And then you want to add your meat. This one is ground beef. This is veal. And then the last one I'm adding is pork. You can do all ground beef if you like, but I think it adds dimension to at least have some mixture of pork in there. It isn't necessarily important to have veal in there, but the veal adds a tenderness that maybe wouldn't be. The breadcrumbs keep it moist, otherwise you just have one big hard blob of meat. Right here I can still see the pork. It looks very light, and see this dark brown kind of running through here. That's the ground beef, so it hasn't quite mixed all in. So now that I have everything mixed in, now I'm going to add the salt. And that looks like maybe it's a 1/4 teaspoon. And this is a 1/2 pound of beef, a 1/2 pound of pork, and a 1/2 pound of veal. We're going to put that all in there together. So then the next job is to make the meatballs. It's always best so that the meat doesn't cling to your hands. You just want to have your hands wet, tap water. And you can make the meatballs any size you like. I tend to prefer them something about this size because I like to be able to cut them in half. If they're too small, then I think for me they're just a bite size. So I make them probably a little bit larger, well, or a little bit smaller than a handball if you play that game, handball, but larger than a golf ball. You can just let them go into the tomato sauce, one at a time. See, our meatballs have held together, and they're brown, so you know that they're cooked, and they're ready to go. So we make one final taste to see if we need to add any salt or pepper. We definitely need to add some salt. Again, like I said, I always start out undersalting things, and it